Today is Friday, Parashat Tissa. It's also Shabbat Para. We're learning from Hilkhot Shabbat the Halacha Pesuka. Typically, the Halacha Pesuka on Friday is always having to do with the Hilkhot Shabbat, with the laws of Shabbat. And today we're learning about having a goy who was contracted to do a job, whether he's allowed to do it on Shabbat or not. If a person contracts with a goy, with a non-Jew, to build for him a courtyard, or to build for him a wall, or or to harvest his field, or or he hired him for a year or two, to build for him a courtyard, or to plant for him a vineyard. If the work that was supposed to be done was in town, or within the Shabbat boundary. Shabbat boundary is about 2,000 steps outside of the city. Even though it's outside of the city, since it's about 2,000 steps within the boundary of the city, then it's considered as if he was part of the city. You cannot let them work on Shabbat because of those who will see the workers working in that property of the Jew. They don't know that he contracted with them in general. They think that he hired him to work on Shabbat. And that's why it would not be allowed because of Mar'it Ayin, because of giving the wrong impression that these people, you hired them for Shabbat. However, if the contract was to be done outside of the city or the boundary of the city, Muta, it would be permitted, since you did not ask the goy to work specifically on Shabbat. Similar to, let's say, you give a car to fix to a non-Jewish mechanic. You gave it to him on Monday, and he tells you, come next week. And when he came next week, fine, you discovered that he worked on it on Shabbat. No problem, because he could have worked on it any other day of the week. He made the decision to work on Shabbat. You contracted with him for the project, not on a specific day of work. So if building that wall or that courtyard, etc., was done outside of the boundary of the city where there is no other Jews, there is no Jews there, Shir'et upon him that will see the workers, Kshem Osim Shabbat, when they do work on Shabbat, then it would be permitted. V'chen, also, Mutar le'adam le'askir karmo sadeu le'nochri, it's permitted to rent out your field or your vineyard to a non-Jew, Afal pi shu zor'an ve'lotan be'Shabbat, even though he's doing work in that field on Shabbat, he may be plowing, or he may be planting the seeds, doing work on Shabbat in the field, She'aroi, because anybody that sees that being done, Yodea she'schurin henu be'arisut natan lahen. Because anybody knows that typically in that place, if they were, it's a common thing where people rent out their field, and the person who works in the field decides when to work, and he's a non-Jew, then he would be permitted. ודבר ששם ישראל בעליו קוראו עליו, ואין דרך רוב אנשי אותו המקום להזכירו, או ליתן לו בעריסות, אסור להזכירו נוכרי. But if it's a field that had the name of a Jew called on it, like the field of Mr. Cohen, let's say, and in that locale, in that city, it is not customary to rent out the fields to somebody else, then anybody who would see a guy working there would think that he's working on behalf of the Jew. That field is called on the name of the Jewish owner, and typically in that city they don't rent out the fields to work. So if you're the exception and do it that way, and the fact that it has the name of the Jewish person on that field, it's called Cohen's field, for instance, then we would refrain from allowing the non-Jew to work there, because it could be misinterpreted and it could be misunderstood. It could be misleading to think that work is being done on behalf of the Jew. And here we see a very important concept of Mar'it Ayin. What is Mar'it Ayin? When the action that is being done gives the impression that it's something that is forbidden, then a person should refrain from it. Even though, let's say, it was not really based on the strict letter of the law forbidden, because it's the goy who decided on his own. But if it gives the impression that it may be that the Jew hired him specifically for Shabbat, then a person has to refrain from that. This was the Halacha Psuka from Hilkhot Shabbat for today. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen, and Shabbat Shalom.